Hi everyone, my name is Nur Amalia binti Muhammad Nazirun. My matrix number is 227639.
My name is Nur Imanina Farhana binti Jabbar.
Hi, my name is Nur Aisyah Hinda binti Ahmad Suhaimi. My matric number is 230458.
Hi, my name is Shashanu Idina binti Azman Hadi and my matric number is 228152.
Have you ever heard of the second law of thermodynamics? If you haven't, don't worry because I'm here to give you a quick explanation on what exactly is the second law of thermodynamics is about. So, have you ever hold an ice cube in your hand? What will happen after some time? The ice will start to melt and turn into water, right? And this process happens because the heat from your warm hand will move towards the ice cube. Another example is when you leave a hot cup of coffee on a table. Eventually, the hot coffee will cool down. This is because the heat from the hot coffee will move towards the cooler surrounding. And this process is actually irreversible, which means that it cannot go back on its own. So, if you want the hot coffee that is already cooled down to become piping hot again, you need to heat it up on a stove or using a microwave. And this is exactly what the second law of thermodynamics is trying to teach us, is that heat only flows in one direction, which is from hot body to cold body, and work is needed to reverse it. And later in this video, you will see another demonstration that will give you more ideas on how the second law of thermodynamics works.
Today I will be giving you guys a simplified version of second law corollaries. So first of all, heat moves naturally from hot things to cold things. For example, a hot drink cools down when you put it outside because the heat goes into the cooler room temperature. So this means that heat will never transfer from cold things to hot things unless energy is added. For example, in a refrigerator, electricity is used and from that, hot food can be kept cold. Second is that no machine is 100% efficient. What this means is that whenever we use energy, some of it will always be wasted as heat. For example, a car engine not only moves but also makes heat and makes sound. So, this means that machines can never use all of their energy efficiently. So, in short, heat moves from hot things to cold things and energy will always be spread out and can never be used 100%. So, thank you everyone. That's all.
And next is the demonstration for us to observe the movement of warm and cold water. First, we need 2 cups of water and prepared at different temperature. 1 cup contains cold water while the other contains warm water. Food coloring is then added to 1 or both cups to make the water movement is easier to observe. Next, the cup filled with cold water is placed on a stable surface and then we take folded piece of paper to place it on top of the cup containing warm water, and this cup is carefully flipped upside down and positioned on top of the cold cup water. After that, the paper between 2 cups is slowly pulled out. At this point, the movement of between the warm and cold water is observed. Finally, the experiment is repeated by switching the position of the cup with warm water at the bottom and cold water on the top so that we can compare the result.
In everyday life, we constantly see examples of the second law of thermodynamics, even if we don't realize it. One important idea from this law is that heat naturally flows from the hotter objects to the cooler objects. For example, when you pour hot water into a cup, it slowly cools down if you leave it on the table. This happens because heat moves from the hot water to the cooler air around it. The air warms slightly and the water becomes cooler over time. Another example is when you wash your hands with hot water. Your hands will feel warm because heat energy moves from the hot water to your cooler skin. The water will lose heat and your hands gain heat until they feel comfortable. We also see this when hot food is left out. A hot bowl of soup does not stay hot forever. Heat spreads from the soup to the surrounding air, the bowl and the table. Eventually, everything will reach a similar temperature. What we do not see is the opposite happening on its own. Cold objects do not suddenly become hot without a heat source. This is why we need heaters, kettles, or stoves to make things hot. These everyday experiences show that heat always moves in one natural direction, from hot to cold, and it clearly demonstrating the second law of thermodynamics in our daily life. That's all for me.